sorry about my camera. All right, let's see. I'm gonna let Jess in here. Hello, everybody. We're so excited. It's going to be so much fun. We have a bunch of fun things to talk about today. Hello.
Hello.
I always have to adjust my chair to fit my head in the window. Okay.
I had no idea how this setup was gonna work for me. I'm
Oh,
just
listen,
throwing things together.
you got in there super quick, so it worked out perfect. Okay, and hey to everyone that's in here. We're super excited. It's going to be so much fun. Like I said, we have a ton of fun topics for today. So I guess we'll start with introductions for everyone who may not know you or me or both. And so, Jess, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Jess Walker. I'm an intuitive, an artist. I read tarot. I would classify myself as a shadow witch, although I don't really like labels. Um, I just use that terminology for the sake of other people finding me, because I do tend to pull a lot of shadow work. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I have two cats, a wonderful girlfriend. Yeah, that's me.
I love it. I love it. And I have one more thing I want to ask you after I do an introduction. Okay. So my name is Brittany Porter. I do Akashic record readings, Reiki. I do coaching, energy coaching, life coaching, and I read oracle cards. Um, and Jess and I actually met through a spiritual group, and our friendship has really blossomed for there. I very much appreciate you, Jess.
Right
And
back at you.
yeah, it's been a really sweet blossoming. And so I have a 10-year, well, he will be 10 tomorrow, 10-year-old son. And I have two dogs, Mr. Pugs and Daisy. So yeah, that's me. And Jess, I wanted to ask you about your art. And
Yes.
yes, and what got you into art and the type of art you do, and how you
What
blend your music into it.
what got me into art? I'm a life path 3, so I was born. That got me into art. I
I love
literally
it.
have been creating since I could hold on to anything that could make color on anything. My grandma, she has pictures that I drew when I was like 2 years old, and I was barely going outside the lines at that point. So I know that I've probably carried that talent over from lifetimes. I also know, like, in this incarnation, that I have high functioning adult autism. And so a lot of my high art ability comes from that as well. So, yeah.
I think that's amazing because like neurodivergence and people that have autism, a lot of
Superpowers.
they really are. They really, really are. We make a lot of like neural connections through many different facets that
And
serve
it's
us so
funny,
well.
I saw a TikTok not long ago, and it was like, at what point and how many people have to be neurodivergent for it not to be divergent and just a part of human nature?
Absolutely. I think we're headed towards that too because I'm
Me
seeing
too.
like so much more content about how it's a superpower. And like
Absolutely.
spreading like wildfire. So I think a lot of people are like picking up on that, like, oh, they're the innovators. They're the ones that come up with like new concepts because we make those neural connections and like pull from here, 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 here,
From a
here.
different
Yeah,
way.
and make
Yep.
new things. And I was having a conversation with someone about the title that we call ourselves. I think because we're both neurodivergent, right? It's hard to fit in a constructual box in a title because we do so many things. And like you just said, you did
Absolutely.
like 10 different things, and like, what do I call myself? Based off of all of that. And
Exactly.
so,
I
yeah,
feel
and
like my title could be a paragraph long, and then you would still only know 0.00002% of what I do.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that a lot of your modalities blend into one another too. Like you
A
take
hundred
something
percent.
here. Yeah. Yeah. So
Because
it's a
my
little different.
intuitive ability leaks over into my art all the time. I do intuitive art for people often. And so, yeah, it definitely goes back and forth. The
Oh,
imagery
that's
on the
what,
tarot cards
yeah.
and stuff, that's what speaks to me in the decks. So it definitely goes hand in hand.
I love that. And I know we were supposed to talk about your art more and the type of art you do. Jess did a alien portrait for me, and it is one of my favorite pieces of all time. It's just so magical, and it really expresses like the galactic magical side of myself. And when I saw that, I was like, it was, I know I have that in me, but it was great, like external validation too. It's like, oh, now I see it in art form, and it just like took it to a different level. And like you have codes in your art as well. And so I was receiving healing from your art. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more and what you got you
Yeah,
interested in.
somebody was actually just saying in the comments, can we see the art? You can check out all of my art. It's at jess.walker90 on Instagram. It's attached to this account. I just share my tarot on this account. So if you go into my profile, it's just linked there. I also
Yes.
have a TikTok, which is at jesswalker25. So
Yes, everybody should go check it out. It's amazing. Also, the portrait that she made me, I don't have a printout. It's a digital print. And so it's on my page too. You can go from there and see it as well and get into her account too. And so I definitely suggest checking out all her art. It is absolutely amazing.
and I have the ability to send it in a way that allows you to put it on things too. So if you want it in a different format, like I could send it to you so that you could get it like put on things, t-shirts, sweaters, calendars.
Perfect. Because I was going to
Yeah,
say, I definitely want to get it printed and then put it up in my space because sometimes we need those like visual representations of the magic to like keep reminding us in our subconscious, like, oh, it's real and you can stay in flow with it. And so I like to have a lot of like tapestries and different, forms, and it just keeps reiterating it and keeps it ever present in your mind.
absolutely.
Yes. So I did want to ask you. Oh, Carrie said, yes, your art is beautiful.
Thank
It
you.
really is. Oh, that's good to know. Jess has done several things for me, including my podcast cover art. I was just on Amanda's podcast, and your art for the cover is spectacular. I said, that is so beautiful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I did want to ask you, so I know that you call yourself a shadow witch, right? Because we need titles for things. And so if you're comfortable, I was going to ask if you could tell us a little bit more about that and what that entails.
Yeah, so I started to read tarot for myself first, as most of us do. And then when I started to read for others, I started to notice that a lot of it had to do with blockages, struggles that they were facing, things that they had to let go of, just certain things that kind of like showed the shadow self and shadow work aspects of it.
Mhm.
And so I just kind of like moved into that realm of it. I also know that now, like, I don't really know how to say like dark energy without it sounding bad, but
Yep.
there's light and dark energy always, and it's always been like the shadow aspect, the shadow realm. I've oftentimes in meditation like transformed into a raven and gone to the underworld. And so it's like it's pretty interesting just to like see things from that kind of an aspect, because what I try to do is to have you sit in that darkness and to know that like you are the light in the darkness, and that you are the one that is going to be the person who leads yourself out of it. Like we will sit there together as long as you need to be comfortable, to be friends with that shadow aspect of yourself, turn the light on within your own self, and then walk out of the darkness at that point.
That was a beautiful description. It really was. I feel like oftentimes people get lost in the shadow realm within themselves. And it's like they don't know how to get out. And they need somebody to come in and, like you said, empower them and say like, hey, you have this internal light source. You can get yourself out of here, but sometimes you just get stuck in there. It's almost like a maze trying to find your way out.
And that's exactly it, is that like when you go into the shadow, when you're sitting with your shadow, that's the key, is you have to sit with your shadow. If you're running around in the darkness, of course you're going to be filled with anxiety. You could run into anything. You can't see anything. You could fall into a hole. You don't know what's in front of you. When you're running through the darkness and you're trying to fight that kind of stuff, it creates the anxiety and the fear and everything that comes along with trying to fight the shadow. You just have to sit down and make friends with it and see what it's trying to teach you, to reevaluate things, because oftentimes the shadow comes up when we're trying to manifest different things for ourselves, when we have to let go of different things in order to move on and to manifest like beautiful new realities. And so it's just a moment to sit and reflect instead of the go, go, go energy when you're back out into the light, back out into reality, creating magic up on that high. You know, it just is the time to sit and rest and reflect.
I think that's great that you're saying like meet the shadow aspects of yourself and then make friends with it. Someone said I've learned so much from the darkest points in my life.
Absolutely.
It'll teach you some real stuff and make you like real tough.
Absolutely.
So when you're going into the shadow realm, do you find oftentimes that entity that's in there, let's just call it an entity, that people think that it's like its own life form, or do you find that it's like a reflection piece of them, if that makes sense?
Sorry, just give me 1 second.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, never mind. No, we're good. Sorry, can you repeat that question? I wanted to make sure that my girlfriend didn't get locked out when she went.
Oh yeah, definitely make sure she's okay. Yes, if you need to take a second. Is she good?
She's good.
Okay, perfect. And hello, Mary. So I was saying that when you go into the shadow realm, is it people thinking that it's like an entity form in there, or or are you explaining this is you, this is a piece of you, right? And
what's the difference?
Right, and that's kind of the thing.
The entity is you. You are the entity. Yeah. It is presenting itself to you because you need it in that moment. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not so scary when you know it's just a piece of you.
Absolutely.
Yes,
that's exactly it. It's almost like you can get to this point where you look back and you almost can see it. Like I had an instance when I was younger that I literally thought that I met Satan himself. I was born and raised into the Mormon religion, and so of course that was like ingrained into me, and I just like had felt this really like horror. Like it was a really difficult time in my life. I don't know. I was walking away from the church and stuff, and a whole bunch of series of events happened. I went to go and leave the area that I was in, and my whole body just froze, and I could feel this entity behind me. Anyway, I had thought at that point that it was Satan himself. And after I woke up, my higher self took me back to that moment, and I realized the lessons that I was learning in that moment. And I was like, oh shit, it was fucking me. Wow. That was rude. And so I was just like, I scared the living crap out of myself in that moment, but for my highest good. It made me make decisions at that moment that like led me to exactly where I am now, and I saw how that unfolded. And so it was a wild experience that just led to something beautiful, and now I can trust that those entities that present themselves to you or whatever are just dark parts of you that need healing, that they are presenting themselves to you because they're mirroring aspects of you that need some love.
And you know what the beautiful thing is? They're doing it out of love to help you grow and prosper, right? And so sometimes we think those things are scary and they're trying to attack us, but it's like, hey, I can help you get further towards the light, but you have to look at me, right? You have to interact with me. And you're really having me rethink something that happened to me as a child, and I'll get into that in just a second. But I wanted to ask, why do you think that your entity, that was you, was coming out from outside of you? Do you think it's because you didn't want to go inside, and so it's projecting outside?
At that moment in time, I was questioning my belief in anything.
Okay.
At that moment in time, I said, all of it is bullshit. There is nothing to believe in this world. And in that
Mhm.
moment, I came through to make myself believe in something.
Whoa. Okay. That's some powerful stuff, Jess.
Because after that, the message that came through was once you have met one, you cannot deny the other. And
Yes.
another, and what was happening was once you meet the shadow, you cannot deny that there's light. And the thing is
Mm.
that like I came through in a way that I needed to in that moment. I couldn't come through and like stroke my hair and be like, it's gonna be okay, love. I had to be like, nah, this stuff is like sometimes terrifying, but if it
Yeah.
exists, so does the beautiful stuff.
That just like that just like resonated in my body so deeply when you were saying that. Um, and you can't see the light without the darkness. Like you have to have that contrast, that yin or yang, right, to actually even
Absolutely.
see it.
Yeah.
So when I was a child, I had this entity that was trying to access me, if that makes sense. Like it always would zoom up to me, and it was terrifying when it would happen. And it's probably happened from like 9 to 12 years old. And when I
I'm
was
sorry if
younger,
you can hear my cat, but
it's okay. Hey, Hex. So when I was younger, I grew up in a like very Christian household as well, and I didn't really have access to witchcraft. Like that just wasn't in my home, but I was drawn to it. I naturally was drawn to things that would make like, potions and like act like books were.
outside mud potions, stirring it with the
Yeah,
sticks. Yes, absolutely.
yes. And then as I got older, it kept getting shoved down. Like that stuff's evil. We don't do that, right? And so I was kind of like terrorized by this entity that kept trying to like access me, and I had a hard time sleeping. Like I was just really scared. And now you've got me thinking, was that a part of myself that was trying
It
to say like, hey, I'm here, and it needed to show me the same thing that you were?
it could have been, and at that moment when they're trying to access you,
Mm-hmm.
that to me just seems like boundaries are being crossed because they're trying to force something. And so at that moment, I would set up boundaries. So, like when I read, I put myself in my center ring. I have a second ring, which I call my intimate space, and I call all my guide teams it, like my whole guide team, and they just fill that space and they surround me. And whoever I'm reading for, I will put them in the meeting space ring. And in those instances, when I come with shadow aspects of myself as well, I put them in the meeting space because I don't want those pieces
Yeah.
in myself, but I do want to learn from them. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'll put them in that boundary. And then I will give them a communication rose. I just literally hand them a flower. Here you go. This is how now we have built a bridge. You can communicate with me. And it's literally as simple as that in my mind. And those boundaries are set. So when things are trying to come at you, it's important to sit down with them, but you need to also communicate clearly that this is me now and you can teach me something, but that is you. And so, yeah, I would just caution with allowing things back into yourself that didn't come out in a healing session, I guess. Like, because I've also been walked through a healing session where somebody pulled my child self out. We pulled things from my child self. We set
Mm-hmm.
that stuff on a barge and set it out to sea. And then my child self reintegrated into myself. So there are differences, but I hope that energetically they feel very different, if that makes sense.
Yes, it totally makes sense. And that's perfect because we were about to start going into why boundaries are important. um,
Absolutely.
yes, and as a child, I even felt like that's very invasive. You are not accessing me. Like, we're not doing that because whatever energy you're coming at me with, and I had a sense that it wasn't inherently evil. It was just
And
trying
sometimes
to,
it's not.
yeah, it was just trying to communicate with me, but it was going about it the wrong way. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just kept holding that boundary and holding that boundary and holding that boundary, and it eventually went away. It stopped trying to access me like that. But that can be very scary for somebody, especially a child.
Oh,
that doesn't know
exactly.
what's going on. Right.
I
And now
had an
I look
instance
back
like that
and know what
myself.
happened. But this is why spreading awareness about not only physical boundaries with people and things, but like energetic boundaries are so important.
Absolutely. Setting
Yeah.
boundaries around yourself, like shields of protection. Like I do it constantly. I'm always, anytime I go into a store, like I'm very energetically sensitive. And so
Mm-hmm.
like anytime I go into a store, I'm like, all right, guys, round up, we're going. And so I'm just like, surround me, create space. I ask them to create space because I feel overwhelmed when people crowd me. And so, because I know that about myself, I can ask my guides to create space. And a lot of the times I get 3 to 5 feet minimum when things are crowded. And it's just because I set the intention of holding that boundary. So it could
That's
be something
beautiful.
as, yeah, it could be something as physical as that. And then, of course, it goes into like vocalizing boundaries as well with,
Mm-hmm.
these are my absolute no's. Like you just don't want to push past that.
Do you feel like before you kind of started on this journey that you can tell a significant difference in when you weren't setting those energetic boundaries and when you are setting the energetic boundaries?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Previous to knowing about how energetically sensitive I am and how I say easy, but like, our intentions are powerful. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we believe our intentions wholeheartedly, it does become easy. And so now it's easy for me to set those energetic boundaries. It's easy for me to set those shields. But beforehand, when I didn't know about it, like I suffered from chronic anxiety. I was agoraphobic. I didn't leave my house for 11 months. I could barely even take the garbage outside without having a
Yeah.
panic attack because I was like just bombarded all the time with shit that it wasn't even mine. I would tell people all the time, like, I don't even know why I'm panicking right now. I
Mm-hmm.
literally just feel like my chest wants to explode. That's just it. I just have the physical sensations. And so I had no idea what was going on. And it was just not being able to have those energetic boundaries. I had been upgraded. My abilities had been upgraded. I was turned on to maximum. It was like you were put on this earth as an empath, and I know that those abilities were shoved down and pushed down, and you were told that they don't exist because of society's, stuff and what have you. But it's time, and so it was cranked on full, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
At that point in time, I was working as a cashier at a big hardware store. And so
Whoa.
I was like running into 200 plus people a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I made it 5 hours through my shift, I was lucky.
Yeah.
And so it's like when they asked me, like, can you stop working and go get some help? I'm like, bye.
Yeah.
See you later. Like, I'm out of here. And so that was a beautiful transition. It was hard for me. It was really difficult to be like, you are so mentally unstable that you can't hold a job. That was hard. But it gave me the time to sit down and work through so much trauma
Yep.
because I came into this world through trauma. That was the script that I wrote so that I could have the abilities that I have, so that I could do the things that I do, so that I could live the life that I live. That is the script I wrote, is to wake up through trauma. And so I had to work through, and I'm still working through complex PTSD and other things like that. But it's like the more that I heal, even that side of things, like just the more magical everything becomes in my current existence. And the healing itself is also becoming easy, just like the manifestation and the magic is becoming easy. You can look at it, sit with it, thank it for its time, and then just say goodbye.
Oh, Jess, you were speaking, you're speaking like to my heart. So in the chat, someone said, I feel like I need to work on setting boundaries. This is very eye-opening. And so I'm going to share something really quick, and I'd like to ask you more about being an empath and setting like boundaries and how that's helped. So I also suffered from or lived with a lot of anxiety and depression for a very long time. And one, I did not know that I was neurodivergent. I didn't know I was an empath. I just thought that I was super ultra sensitive to everything and that wasn't normal, and I wouldn't share that with people because I thought I was just like an anomaly and I didn't even know what was going on with me. Right? And so if you're not neurodivergent and you're empathic and you're wanting to work with energy, it can be super fucking intense. Absolutely. It really can. Mm-hmm. And it's when you're going out and you're feeling in your body everyone's thoughts, feelings, emotions, but you're interpreting it as your own. And until I heard the word empath, I had no idea that that was even a thing. And then I was like, a light bulb went off. And I was like, oh,
you could just ask this stuff to get out of my body? What?
Right. And I was like, oh shit, all this stuff wasn't and that's the thing too, it doubles up your trauma work because it's like double the amount of trauma work.
I went through imposter syndrome in my own trauma. Because after I discovered that I was an empath, after I was able to put up energetic boundaries, I would say about 60% of my anxiety went away within a week. And then I had to like sit there and go, did I make it up? Was I really not anxious the whole time? Like, where did all that anxiety go? So you almost have like imposter syndrome over that. And then because I did that, I fell back again and had a little bit more anxiety and had to work through allowing myself to let go of that timeline and sit with the shadow aspect of the fact that I was, in a sense, addicted to being on that victim timeline, because you have to like tear yourself apart from it. And everything was like, wow, I'm complaining. Oh, and I'm complaining loudly. Like I want people to hear that I'm suffering. Why? And then it turns around and it goes into your inner child work, and it's because, well, nobody understood that I was hurting then. And so then you have to sit down with your child's self and you have to give yourself the love and all of the things that you are desiring and say, I understand that it hurts now. I understand that it does. And know that you are going to make it through this. And not only are you going to make it through it, but you're going to make it through it stronger and better than ever.
That root chakra stuff and all that trauma that's in there, it's a lot to untangle. And when you're talking about that victim mentality, you can get really addicted to anxiety.
Yeah, it's like adrenaline.
It really is. It like motivates you and pushes you. Like if I'm in fight or flight, that means that I have like this bundle of energy that I can utilize. But the thing is, that only works for so long. Like you have significant burnout if that's the type of fuel that you're running on. But if you don't know that and haven't heard somebody say that before, you just think that's how life is.
Exactly. And because I had come here through trauma, and my trauma started very traumatic at 5 years old, and I won't get into that because I don't want to trigger anybody. It just was like trauma. You are changed forever at 5 years old. And so it just became my life at such a young age that was all I knew. And so pulling myself out of that, it was almost like when you're growing up and you don't realize that you're poor until you realize that you're poor. And it's like, I didn't realize that I was like doing it until I was doing it. And it's not that I asked for all of that trauma. It's not that I wasn't a victim at that point, but it's that I'm no longer a victim now.
Yeah,
not
you
only
actually
did I survive,
step into your power.
Exactly. And and it's like, I'm not just a survivor, I'm a freaking warrior, because I made it through that. And not only did I make it through that, but I am on the other side of it a way better person. And I would, I'm able to do the things that I do because of what I've been through. And so I'm almost reaching a point of being thankful for everything that I had gone through because it got me here. And you know, at that point,
Yep.
you're like, I'm at like the bottom, you know? It's like I'm at the bottom of the pool and I can kick off the bottom now so that I can reach the top and take a breath of fresh air again because I've reached the I've reached the foundation of that trauma when you can thank it and be thankful for what
Yes.
it made you.
It's like a shift that you make from survivor to thriver. And this is not discounting anybody's trauma because
No,
that did not happen to you and it is not your fault, right? That what happened to you is
absolutely
not your
not.
fault. But you are your own sovereign being, and at some point you have to get in there and do that healing work. Like that is where you get your power from, where you step into becoming a thriver from it. And
Yeah.
so,
And
and
it is a
when,
journey.
yeah,
It's a journey. And so you have to take it one step at a time. And if that is what you're working through, just know that like once you take it one step at a time and you work through that little piece, even if it's just the smallest of things, once
mhm,
you look back after doing 100 of the smallest things, you have gone so far.
yeah, I think people discount that if they're not making a huge growth leap, that it's not serving them. And they're like, I'm really not doing anything. It's really those teeny tiny things that can monumentally shift you. Like
Yeah, I
you
mean, look
saying
at
no
when
to
we were,
somebody. Go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, look at when we were all put in timeout for like, you know, a year and we all got to sit
Mhm.
down and everybody started to just realize exactly what it was that they were meant to do.
Yeah, it was revolutionary because it's like, let me reassess my whole entire life and what I'm doing and how I'm interacting in the world and with, like other people and my job. And it just made everybody look at things on a deeper level and really go
Absolutely.
within.
And then how many people were just like, I am not going back to that.
Yeah,
No,
boundaries. I
no.
have noticed that there are so many people now. I think and we don't have to go on off on a huge tangent, but I have noticed that there are so many people that are just up and quitting their job, and it doesn't even matter now because you
Yeah.
can find a job like this because of the way that everything shifted. And so boundaries are like, you're not going to talk to me like that
Well, and so
as an
many other
employer.
people are doing the calculations. It's like, how little hours do I need to work in order to keep a roof over my head? I did that
Yeah,
math. And if I worked
yeah,
15 hours a week, I could pay my rent. And I was like, wow, what? That gives me all that time for art, for tarot. I can
hmm,
pay it like whatever I want after that. And that's where I get to play with the abundance because now I have all of
hmm,
this time to do exactly what
yep,
I want to do. And so now I'm putting like that type of energy into something I desire. That's how you get that manifestation train rolling.
yeah, yeah. And it's like you are exiting yourself out of the capitalistic matrix and saying, I am going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to work on all of these other things that are going to set me up to work for myself. Right. And I
Absolutely.
feel like there's so many people heading in that direction right now. Like so many. But that's boundaries because the society that we're living in now is like you have to do this, 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 this. You have to clock in, clock out, and just running your life.
Well, and I
Okay.
love what I'm seeing all over social media about like work and stuff like that too. And it was like, from now on, I'm going to ask my employer for references. You want to see 3 of my references? I'd like to speak to 3 of your happy employees.
That is some powerful stuff, Jess. Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah. I
I
don't know
want to
how many
know.
times I've heard we're a family in a different jobs, and I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of that family if that's how
Mm-mm.
like you are interacting and treating people. And I think that it's going to be a big shift in the way employees interact with their or employers interact with their employees because now they
Yeah.
see we're not letting that continue, that behavior anymore.
No, exactly. And you know what? I have too much to give. And I know that like I am too goddamn awesome to be put back to where they tried to put people.
Yeah.
Everybody is way too good to be standing there so that a corporation can make billions of dollars off of you.
Yep. We're all going through that collective shit. There's so many people like waking up right now. And it's a very exciting time. And you know what, Jess? We have been through some shit, okay? Like trauma wise, like some real deep stuff, okay? And it's really funny to me that you have a personality, and I do too, that love challenges. And so it's almost like before we got here, what can we do to spark the most amount of growth in the shortest period of time for this collective shift? And there's
Yeah.
so many of us out here that are doing the work and sifting through that so we can help everyone that's coming online right now and saying, like, we've been there, we've done that, we went through the darkness and found our way to the light. And so, but sometimes it's tough to be like a mentor and like a leader like that, because it takes a lot of bravery, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of self-trust, and it's not always easy.
No, it really takes a whole lot of self-trust. And it's like putting yourself out there. You run all of the old programs of everything that has been shoved into our faces since the moment that the internet came about, because we're all trying to portray this perfect version of ourselves, and it doesn't exist. Everybody's so afraid to be themselves because of judgment. And it's like we're the only ones that are really judging ourselves, because who the hell has time to judge other people? Like, I'm exhausted judging myself. I don't know about anybody else. You know, like,
yeah.
So it's just like, I'm loving this shift to like everybody being like, you know what, I'm weird as fuck, and which we all found that out when we were put in a corner for a minute, told to sit down, and it's like, who the hell was I pretending to be? Because like, I'm wacky. Like, this is like, I am a neurodivergent. I am not to be put in a box, you know, like, I'm very different. And I can't live my life like that anymore. Like, it does not do anything for me. Depression is and was literally for me my sign that I was doing something that I didn't resonate with. And it was like, it literally just sucked the soul out of me, you know? It's just like I didn't have the energy for it.
Let me tell you something, Jess. A lot of my anxiety and depression was because I was masking for so long. And I was like, nobody's going to like me if they see what's underneath here, right? And so that was causing so much exhaustion, so much anxiety, so much depression, because I wasn't being my true, authentic self. And so in doing that, I couldn't find the people who were in resonance and alignment with me and who were supporting and encouraging me. I was drawing people into me that weren't good for me because they were only meeting me at the surface level. And no fault to them. Like, they're just living their lives.
The universe is mirroring to you exactly
yes.
what you put out. And if you're being inauthentic with yourself, you're going to get inauthentic people in your lives. And, you know, like, that's just how the game works.
Yeah. As soon as I started expressing myself however I wanted to, and just saying however I feel and acting however I wanted to, my life completely changed.
Mine too.
Like, my spiritual gifts came all the way online, right? Because I wasn't mentally projecting all of this masking and like, what do people think about me and all that stuff that's taking up, you know, your mental scape. And I started finding people, like I found you. I found all these people who just, I love them so deeply, and I know they love me too.
Like true family members.
Yes, like on a cellular soul level.
I honestly, like, I tell people all the time, like, I have never felt more loved, and like, oh my God, my Cancer rising self is gonna bawl on a live right now, but I've never felt more loved and like supported. I was prepared. It's fine.
Thank you for being so vulnerable, Jess. Like, really, and somebody just said that too about us being vulnerable and how it's like healing. And it is. And like, you being vulnerable like that is showing people like that is some real stuff. That is real love to move you to that point, right? And I feel that way too. Like, I am just so, and there's so many people in this live right now that have helped me get to where I am right now. And 100%. I know you too. And I know you too. And we appreciate y'all so much. Like, at a very deep level, y'all have helped us find our authentic selves and helped us know it's okay to express that.
Absolutely, because not
Yeah.
only are we met with such encouragement to be ourselves, but
Hmm.
it's like we're met with like enthusiasm for like,
Yes.
hell yes, for being you.
Yep. Yep. It's different when you are trying to tell people what you're doing with your life, right? And they want to know all the details and how you're doing it and all A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? If I were to tell you I'm doing something, Jess, like real big, like big, 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 you'd be like, great. How can I help you? That's
Exactly.
awesome. I know you're going to do that. Like, good for you. And you don't have to know anything about it. You just know
Nope.
I'm going to make that happen because I am who I am. And the same back with you. Like, you tell me something like that, I'm like, good for you, Jess. You're going to make that happen.
It's already
And
yours.
yeah, and that's a totally different vibration than that other vibration that some people come at you with doubt.
Yes,
Or who
absolutely.
or who are you to do that because they have things going on in their paradigm that they haven't worked through yet.
Absolutely. And honestly, like you shift so much and then you just have to let go. And it's funny because I know that we were going to talk about this portal and letting go and shifts and all the rest
Yes.
of it. And it's like this last shift was wild. I pretty much feel
Oh,
like I've had relationships severed left, right, and center, and some of them with family and some of them with friends. And it's just like you look back and you realize like just how energetically unresonating you are with those people. And you're like, I don't know why I pretended for so long. I don't know why I tried to fight for something that I felt had been so off for so long. Both or all of these relationships were strained for a year, and in my own wanting to not let go of relationships, because relationships are always hard. Letting go of people is hard. Um, it just is something that's really necessary in order for our own growth because we need that vibration, just like you were talking about. One person in particular was one of those why people, how,
yep,
like, and I'm like, you know what? Because I'm magic as fuck, so watch
yep,
me.
yeah. I have come to realize that whatever I set my mind to, I do it. Ever since I was a little child, like if I want to do it, it happens. And like there's some point in your life where you have to start trusting yourself enough that you're going to do it regardless.
Yes,
Yeah. And another
absolutely.
thing I was going to say is I realized that I was aligning with people that weren't aligned with me, and I was accepting that because I was so afraid of being alone. And that's spurred from, childhood stuff and abandonment issues. But I would rather be unhappy than alone at that point, or right, alone at that point. And I was doing myself and those people such a disservice.
And
But
isn't
I
it
was,
such a beautiful space to get to when you would rather be alone than unhappy with people?
I am at that point right now, Jess. If something is not resonating with me, I am
It's
not.
444. Thank you,
Hey,
universe.
letting go of things that are not resonating. Yes. You remember earlier when when I texted you at 444 and we were talking about letting go of things?
That's so
Full
funny.
circle.
Full circle. Yep.
Yes. But again, like that comes with like you going in and doing that healing and learning to love yourself. Love yourself to a point where you know you are the most important person in your life and your self-care and your self-worth come above everything.
Well, and then you just bring in the most beautiful people. On my healing journey,
Yes.
I had done that. And my guides came in and they were like, your soulmate's coming soon. And I'm like, really? But I'm actually okay being alone right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I met her and she's wonderful and I'm so glad. Thank you, universe. Like I was really at that point where I was like,
Yeah.
no, but I'm okay though. And then it just is like it's wonderful because then you meet somebody who is at the level of resonance that you are. And because I had healed myself to the point where I resonated with such a beautiful soul, then I was able to connect with such a beautiful person.
You healed yourself to a point where you met the other version of you and one that is like beneficial and like that you can love unconditionally. Like you met your healed version, which I absolutely love. Like, that is so beautiful. And we can talk about tower moments a little bit too. And that being one of them is that when you were trying to manifest, oh, I wanted to read this comment. I'm sorry. I'm inspired by your friendship. This is emotionally cleansing. I love it. Yes. And this isn't a testament that you will find these people. This will come into your life, because me and Jess have been in some deep dark holes. And I'm not to get to, okay? So, okay, I'm sorry, I was trying to read. So, when I was trying to manifest a different life for myself, shit got crazy. Everything in my life started not working out, and everything started crumbling down around me. I'm talking about everything. People, relationships, family, like everything in my world flipped on its head. And I was like, what is going on right now? What is this? This is not what I signed up for. This is not what all the gurus are talking about, and all these things. Like,
Listen, universe.
Yeah, like, I don't, like, let me go back. I don't want any part of this, okay? And I lost almost everyone in my life. Like, they just completely fell out of resonance. And it's a very lonely journey when you're going through that, because you are having to rebuild yourself with no support sometimes. And the universe does that to really make you go in internally and say, who do you want to be? Who are you going to be on the other side of this? And
That's
COVID was a perfect
exactly it.
vision of that, right? But it can be really scary, because you're like, I'm never going to have anything on the other side of this. But what ends up happening is,
If we choose it that way.
yes, if you don't spend that time going in, because if you want new friends or new romantic relationships, and you're coming from a version that's over here, those people you want in life are not going to resonate with you. They're
Exactly.
you're not going to be on the same wavelength. And so you have to put yourself in the grave, like you said earlier.
See, and why I say that is because when you jump timelines like that, when people start falling away from you and they're not resonating with you anymore, it's because you have now killed off the version of you that resonated with them. That person doesn't exist within you anymore. And so you are, in a sense, in the grave at that point. You have to go through that death process in order to get to the rebirth. And sometimes it is uncomfortable as all hell. As you and I were talking about with stuff that's going on with me just now, I like manifested a new place. And within hours of finding out that I got this new place, everything started crumbling down around me, and people started to completely shift who I thought they were. And I'm literally like, I don't even know, like, this individual right now. Like, we were friends. I don't get this. And so I just had to sit there and understand that it literally is just because I am falling out of resonance, and it hurts. And yes, I've cried about it. And yes, I'm still emotional over it, because like a piece of me is dying, and I have to allow myself to feel those emotions, because if I don't, then I'm meeting myself with judgment, and that doesn't do anything for healing or releasing either. It just holds it within our bodies. And I love that I had seen something not long ago, and it says, like, our bodies are not coffins for pain to die in. We have to release that out of ourselves.
I love that. I love it. And when you're trying to move from point A to point B, what ends up happening is you get caught in this void space. And it's like you're not letting go of this yet, and you're not fully in this. So it can really feel very guttural, and it can really feel like you are actually dying, and you can have very physical effects from this.
The void is the shadow. It's the darkness. And so while we are waiting for the timelines to click over, all we are supposed to do is sit and trust in the darkness. We will know exactly when the time is to get up and move, because we will feel ourselves almost automatically make that shift. All right, now it's time to do something different. We sat in the void for a while. I feel like doing something new today.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, too, I would like to preface, the more times that you go into the void space or the shadow realm, the easier it is every time. And this is not to say, like, it's just you get used to
It's
being in that
practice.
space. Yeah, it's just practice, and that you having trust and faith in yourself that you're going to get out of it. Like,
Yeah, your ego
yeah,
stops fighting it. So what
yep,
happens like in the beginning in your healing journey, like you kind of feel a little crazy. And you're like, does this stuff actually work? And it's like it does if you believe it does. So you have to quiet your ego and you have to slip into that belief, into that faith, into that desire to hold on to your magic. And so once you're flipped into that space, you can then look at your ego and say, like, I understand why you are here. You served a purpose to keep me playing a game in the Matrix, but you know what? We are doing something different now. We are going to do something different now. Thank you.
yeah. And your ego is, a lot of people like to bash the ego, right?
And
Your
that meets it
ego
with
is,
judgment.
your ego is literally set up to keep you safe and to keep
100%.
to keep you safe. And at some point, though, you have to look at it like you're talking to a child almost, right? And say,
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm at the wheel of consciousness now. I have the toolkit. I know how to better take care of us. And so you have to, like, kind of look at it like, I love and appreciate you for all you do, like you're saying. And once you do that and you start to build that relationship with your ego, it's like, okay, I can let go and trust you. I know we're safe, even though we're scared. It's okay. We're going to get out.
Exactly.
It's all right.
I love this
I'll let you
comment.
handle it. Yeah, go ahead.
I love this comment that was made, and it was like, I feel like it's a caterpillar going into the cocoon, and then you come out as a butterfly, which is
Ooh, yeah.
100% because when that caterpillar is in that cocoon, they literally turn into goo and like reanimate themselves into a being that can fly. So it's like, it's such a beautiful analogy to just be like, when you're in the void, you are literally the gooey, cocoony, almost like nothingness, and you are reshaping into a form that then just takes flight.
Mhm. This last new moon, so I was doing so good, good, right? And I was like, oh, my version of myself that's going to be like this for a while, right? No. The new moon came around and it was like, oh, you thought. Okay.
I never hold
So,
on to that anymore.
yeah, I don't know what I was doing, like why I was even holding on to, like, okay, I'm going to be good for a while, right? And so when the new moon came around, it's like, we are going to take everything and make you cycle through it again. And so you can look at it from a different perspective and a different light. And I went so far deep down into the void. I really did. And it was a wild experience, but it only took me 4 or 5 days to get out of there. And when I stepped out, I was like, oh, wow, like I can come out of that experience a lot quicker now and have appreciation for it and say thank you, because now that means I leveled up. It means that I'm on a new timeline. Great. Like,
I
thank
love it.
you.
I love that you
Thank
said that.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've
Yes.
noticed the same thing for myself too. Like even when triggering things will happen, like I'll get triggered. And like I'm an Aries sun sign with a Virgo moon. So I basically explode like a volcano. And then as we saw earlier, Cancer rising, I just cried out. So, like that's just how my zodiac signs play in for me. But yeah, like it just you just have to like find that own kind of modality that works for you when it comes for your healing journey, because once you start to get into this healing journey and you start practicing like the healing journey, and it's hard, like I still cry it out all the time, but the wavelengths get shorter. And so
Yes.
like you'll get triggered and some like you react because I'm still at that place. I haven't healed myself to the space of going, okay. So I'll react, but I've noticed that I don't sit in that energy anymore. Previously, like I said, I was addicted to being the victim. I would allow that to be everything for weeks, like I would just sit in that energy and be like, this thing happened to me last Tuesday. And I'm like, I don't even understand. But like major things will happen now. And I'm like, okay, so what is this teaching me?
Yeah. I Love that. And it's almost like you're in it and it happens, but now you can step outside objectively after like a day. And instead of like a comment somebody made to you and letting it hit you at like a very deep level and taking you out for like a week or two, and then you having to process
It
through
could
all
even
that.
happen within an hour now,
Yeah. And you
right?
say, that is something that is coming from that person. What caused that projection from them instead of like me internalizing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And letting me take a hit from it. And so, like you're saying, it just takes practice. And I am going to take just like a 2-second break because I feel like we're shifting into more light work. And so, and with like healing modalities, I'm going to take a bathroom break, but I'll be back in like 2 seconds. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
So now we sit here awkwardly. Just kidding. I love that. Absolutely. If you're at the start of your healing journey, all I can say is journal. Journaling is wonderful, especially when you can find this one like state of flow. That was one way that I connected with my guides really well. And it really just allows you to not only kind of like get things out and put them on paper, but like you're physically getting it out of your body by like writing it, by putting it on paper. You can do other things along the lines of like witchcraft and stuff where you like burn it to release all of the stuff if that calls to you. But yes, please share all the healing modalities. Do you have a lifetime? I don't even know where to start with all the healing modalities. I would really start with some meditation. Hi, Brittany.
Well, so I'm so sorry about that. I had to drink a lot of water because I was playing volleyball earlier with my son. So I'm back now. Okay.
That's okay. I was reading some comments. I was talking about journaling, which is a really good way when you're at the start of your healing journey. And then I read the comment below about please share all the healing modalities, and I asked if they had a lifetime. So that's where we got to.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a big question. That's a big question. Journaling, I wish that I had journaled more at the beginning of my journey because I think that it was just too much emotionally for me to do that at the time. But that's something that I would very much recommend to anyone because then you can look back and it's going to be hard to read it because you're coming from a different back, right? And it's a lot, but it shows you like the growth cycle that you're going through and like how much you really are growing into a different person. And I journal now and it has really significantly changed my life because it's like taking that energy and taking it out of your body and putting it on paper. And it
That's
literally
exactly what I was saying because you're physically writing it and you're putting
yeah.
the words out of yourself. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I had said.
Yes, yes.
It's perfect.
Do you have okay, so they were talking about modalities and different modalities. Is there a couple of them that you have helped you on your journey?
Oh God, there's been so many. Journaling for sure, meditation. I also do lots of yoga and nature has been wonderful. I've also started to like dabble into my own intuitive witchcraft. And so I just do whatever feels right for myself. I'll write down on paper like what I want to release on one side of it. I'll write on what I want to bring in because I personally believe that when we heal, like we make space in ourselves for new things to come in. And then that's the point where we get to manifest what we fill our space with. So like if you think about your cup being full and you know your cup is always full because that's how we should be and whatever spills over is for other people. But what we hold in our cup is up to us. And sometimes our cups are full of trauma. But when we remove that trauma out of the cup, there then becomes space to fill. And we can ask for the stuff to come in that we then desire. So I would like to release cords that are keeping me tethered to this timeline. But I want to bring in the courage, the confidence, and the trust within myself to know that the next timeline that's coming in is for my greatest and highest good.
I love that. And removing trauma, like you're talking about, working through that. There's a lot of people that are like, how do I start with spirituality and bringing like psychic abilities and like all these things online? Trauma and anxiety and depression and all these things take up so much space in your
There's
energy
nothing
body.
left.
There's literally no room.
There's nothing left other than your hurt self, and it is your hurt self throughout whatever age that trauma happened. So for people who had trauma happen all the way from childhood to young adult into their adult life, like your cup is just that. It's just that, with maybe like, you know, the nice memories sprinkled in there, but there is so much in that, like it just takes up so much room. And so like once you remove that and you just like allow the universe to replace it with the other things that you're asking for, like you feel the difference in your body. I don't even feel like I am in any way, shape, or form the same person. I know like physically I've changed a lot. I've lost 115 pounds just getting rid of trauma. And treating my body better because I know, you know, how to love myself now. And it just is, you know, it's one of the most rewarding, challenging things ever. And it's really what we're here to do, is to just learn, to grow, and to experience.
I love that you shared that too, that you can change your physical appearance, because you really can. Trauma affects you in so many different ways. And like holding on to that and thinking like keeping yourself in the past or projecting yourself into the future, right?
I look at photos of myself from the past and like my eyes don't even look the same. I'm like, my soul is not even the same. Like I don't look like I'm the same person. There's nothing about me that I resonate with. Like that person just doesn't look like me.
I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes I look at photos of myself from maybe like 7 or 8 years ago and I know it's me, but I'm like, who is that? And why was I so sad? Why do I look emotionless behind my eyes? And it's because
holding on to trauma. Yeah.
I can literally look at pictures of myself now and see a light being there, right? But before it was just like a dark aura. Like around me, right?
Absolutely.
And it's that heaviness, it's pulling you down into those lower vibrations, and it makes you feel denser. When you uproot all of that stuff, you are like airy fairy walking around.
Oh my goodness, my walk has changed. I mean, if I walk anywhere now, it's a miracle. I pretty well dance, or I don't know, have a little jig going on somewhere. I don't know. Like I completely like am a whole different person, because like I just don't feel connected to like the sadness that I was before. And it's a beautiful thing for me to be on this side of it, because I was addicted to being that victim, and I'm like, look at me now, you know?
Yeah.
Did you see that? Ooh,
I did. It's lights. You remember when, before we started, my lights, I told you that they were going crazy, and your spirit guides liked what you were saying.
I know, right? They were like, yes.
I love that. Yeah. And I have been finding a lot of people that are saying, like, how do I connect with now that we're talking about it, how do I connect with my spirit guides and like the etheric realms and different dimensions
to yourself.
And things like that? The thing is, if you are not doing that healing work, your vibration is not high enough, and you're also having so much mental space taken up. If you're thinking like about this and that and this and that and this and that, you have to really go in and be quiet and listen to what is going on. It's very subtle, and it gets stronger the more you go on, but when you first start, it's like little whispers coming in, and you can't hear it if you're thinking about the past, if you're thinking about the future, if you're just so wrapped up in what's going on externally. You have to turn on internally.
Absolutely. And you can do work within yourself too, to like have your guides, your higher self, to have them sound different from yourself. Now, I mean, It's interesting when you do that because sometimes you can be like, am I schizophrenic? But then you're like, no, wait, I asked for this. Just kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, so it's really interesting because like, I know like my mom is one of my spirit guides. She had passed away several years ago, and she came back and told me that she passed away when she did so that she could heal on the other side enough to be her ascended version of herself to come back and help me through my journey. And so when she comes and she talks to me, it's a very like whispery, mothering voice, and just so that I know that it's my mom, you know. And
Yeah.
it's funny too because like I've seen her in my mind's eye, and she doesn't look how she looked here on Earth. She looks very much like this, I don't know, like younger version. I've never seen her look the way
Yeah.
that she's just, you know, long brown hair, just gorgeously young. And yeah, I'm so blessed to know my guides.
And I think that's such a beautiful connection that you have with her. And she was so courageous to take that journey to help you now. Like that
100%.
yeah, that's some powerful stuff. It
Yeah.
really is. It
And
really
that
is.
healed some major things. Like, you know, I was 20 in my early 20s when I lost my mom. So it was a really big thing to have lost a parent that young. And then right after losing my mom, and I'm like talking weeks later, my dad got really sick and I almost lost him too. So that was pretty intense, but it shapes us and molds us, and we don't quite understand why things happen when they happen. But when she came back and gave me that little bit of, you know, knowledge, I was just like, okay, I understand about trust.
That is so beautiful. I love that. And I almost feel like that was your mom. Like in the back, like saying like, tell them about me.
My mom is so vocal. Oh my God, I had somebody read for me one time,
Mhm.
and she was like, somebody's here, and she was kind of like fighting the thing, and all of a sudden you just saw her go, get out of my way, I need to talk to my kid.
Oh
It
my
was just
God.
like, my mom, she's a Capricorn, you guys, like you can't keep her down.
I absolutely love that. And Capricorn, yeah, my Capricorn ascending is like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. So I feel that. I feel it. Yes.
Right.
Um, someone
My
said my
father,
father. Oh,
yeah,
go
I was
ahead.
just reading that. I was like, my father passed away last year, and he also is a younger version of himself. I love hearing this. I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry for yours as well. I do love that we're able to have that kind of connection with our family members on the other side. And I just love that as we ascend this physical earth, I basically was like shown from my guides that if we want to think about it linearly, even though we know that that's not it, but you want to think about like the third dimension here, and the veil is here, but like our ancestors, they all live within the etheric realms. And once we ascend the planet to a space where we pass the veil, we will walk with all of our ancestors again. We will see
Mm,
all of the angels, the aliens, the beings. And I know that's
mm.
very freaking woo, but I don't have time to not be woo anymore. I don't have time to be
Oh,
inauthentic. I don't have time to pretend. You know, like we know, and I know that anybody else who resonates with this, they know, and it's just such a beautiful thing to have. And I just want to be able to share that with so many people now because this is really freaking life changing, and I am so blessed to be a part of it.
it really is, and I really feel like that is going to happen a lot sooner than a lot of people are thinking.
We already
Because,
hit critical mass.
yeah,
It's like there is no like people were talking about like how like we could teeter either way, but it was like we hit critical mass, and at this point, there are so many people waking up
mhm.
every single day that it's like we are like a couple years away from being in an unrecognizable earth. I remember seeing something somewhere about 15 years from now, it would be equivalent to utopia. But the fact of the matter is that we have to build up to that. So we are almost at the point of starting to rebuild instead of tear down. And things are going to change so fast because there are just so many people that are like, this needs to change. it needs to change, and you can't deny it now.
And I think it's also important, like you're saying, it has to be a build up too. Like, so I have found that so many people are like, when is it going to happen? When? But we have all these people that are just now coming online. And when you first start working with other dimensions and etherical beings and spirit guides and all of these things, if that's not something that has been around in your paradigm, it can be very scary.
Well, if you think about, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're okay. I was just going to say that society makes it seem like those things aren't real. So when they start happening, you start to question your sanity and your reality. And until you look that in the face and say, okay, I'm going to take a leap of faith and try this, and then the universe starts showing you how it really is real, it can be really intense. And so sometimes it takes you following other people that have been there and done that for a long time, and they're like, it's okay, we're all vibing like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're part of the people too that have been going through all that trauma to clear out and pave that way. But if you're just starting, it can be a scary journey.
It really can be. And like we think about, we're so programmed to think about when we look at ourselves and take time for ourselves that we're selfish. But the fact of the matter is that when we micro that work, when we go within ourselves and we change that within ourselves, it's the same thing that I was talking about before with the cup. If we want to look at that as a macro perspective, we have to empty out this reality's trauma. We have to empty out the shit that doesn't resonate anymore because there's no room for anything else in this reality yet. And so while we go within ourselves and we do that work within ourselves and we change that within ourselves, we are changing the vibration, and the vibrations on the planet will no longer resonate with what that old version was. The same way as our friends will die away from us when we switch realities because our environment shifts around us according to what we do within.
Oh, environmental shifts is something we were going to discuss too. And I feel like a lot of people are in the collapse paradigm right now, and they're seeing like nothing is going to replace it. But like we were talking about with the tower moments, things have to fall away and crumble in order for new things to come up. And people are really waking up and saying, like, this is how we're going to make change. But those things have to fall away in order to bring those things in. So you can either be part of the paradigm of like, oh, it's just going to shit, or oh, it's okay, we're gonna replace, and this is how we're gonna do it. Let's come together and figure it out.
And speaking about people seeing the shit, I mean, yes, there is a lot of shit happening right now. But it's like, you can look at it and you can be like, well, the world is shitty, it's never going to change. Or you can look at it by saying, they're exposing themselves at this point. They're just being so loud right now. The people that are still asleep, the alarm clock is like on, its ninth awake cycle and is like a Blair horn at this point, trying to get the deepest of asleep people awake. And so the world is mirroring the worst of the worst to wake up the deepest of asleep people. So you can look at it and say the world is never going to change, or you can look at it and say that they're exposing everything that is about to fall apart.
It's almost like the collective looking at its own shadow. We
Absolutely.
talked about that
and then you have to sit down.
Outside of us, but it's really like internal.
And you have to sit down and make friends with it in order for it to be released. Yeah.
But I do feel like the timelines are ramping up a lot faster because
100%.
Like even when like everything is just happening like so quickly you can't even keep up with it. And go ahead.
If you think about like, we are raising the frequency of the planet, and when you raise the frequency in hertz, the wavelengths get shorter together. When you're at a deeper hertz, they take a longer time to play out. And so when we were in a denser reality, our manifestations took a longer time to play out. But we are heightening the frequency, so everything is going faster now. I mean, everybody says it all the time. Wasn't it just April 3 weeks ago? Like, time is going by so fast. And we're getting to this space now where it's because like the frequencies are at such a level that we're reaching instant manifestation. And in order to reach instant manifestation, the frequency has to be really quick. So really high up there.
That's the other side of the coin. Like, yeah, there's a lot of like things that could be seen negatively that are happening, but on the other side of that, it's like you can traverse through time a lot quicker, because I am finding that things are coming into my life that I thought would take years to get to. And it's like I have one conversation with someone and all of a sudden it's in my reality.
Well, and at the same time, like the tower moments too, because they have to, like, your reality falls apart so much quicker. Just like I
Yep.
was saying, like, I got the thing for like, yes, you get to move like this morning, and an hour later, everything was falling apart around me in my environment. And
Ooh,
I'm
yep.
like, universe, I get it. Like, I've made the decision to do the thing. Can we like back up a bit? you
Yeah.
know?
Sometimes it'll slam you in the face, like, hey, we know you can handle this. Okay.
I always try to think about it as everybody's own journey. I don't all have all of the answers, and I don't know why some people come here to experience the things that they came here to experience. But I resonate myself with being a walk-in. I don't know. I didn't really read the question out loud for anybody.
I'll read
Oh,
it. Does it ever bother
sorry.
anyone? It's okay. It's okay. And I didn't either. I was just looking at it. Does it ever bother anyone else knowing that others have to suffer to wake up? I hate this about being an empath. The last thing I want is others to suffer.
Like the only thing that I can really say about that is like I resonate with being a walk-in. And so like right now in my healing journey, I feel like my higher self is a separate being than the higher self that was in my body when I was a child. And so
Mm,
the person who was here during my childhood literally came here to experience pain and
mm.
trauma and suffering. Like that's what they wanted their game to be. And so there isn't any judgment on that. But it was just something to mold and shape me into a person where this current version of myself could then take over and learn from all of that and let go of all of that and then thrive from all of that. And so, yeah, I really can't answer like fully why people have to suffer in order to wake up. But I think that part of it's just part of what we signed up for coming here, because everything that's on the other side is, I guess, like glorious, like ethereal. Like we don't know what it is to feel pain, and for some reason, like that is toxic and addictive to us. Like we want to incarnate on this planet over and over again in order to experience that.
Yeah. As part of the pendulum swing too, like in order to experience like highs, hopefully we don't have to do that forever. But it's like the paradigm that was like I need to experience an immense amount of pain so I can experience the elatedness and
I
the high
love that
vibration.
I love that you say pendulum, and I want to make it a personal pendulum because my severity of emotional pain is not the same as somebody else's. And so if
Yes.
somebody else came here to experience their version of intense trauma, that is their version of intense trauma, and they are the ones that get to do what they want with that trauma. Myself, I get to also choose what I'm going to do with the trauma that I was incurred with on this lifetime, like in this lifetime. And so it just is, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the cards you were dealt?
I love that you said that because I have been finding that there are so many people that discount their trauma because they say, oh, I wasn't in an experience like I see that is projected, right? Like really bad sexual trauma or, just very intense things that society says you have to experience that to label yourself as going through trauma. It can be very tiny, subtle things because it's relative. It's how you perceive it. And like I gave an example earlier to someone of, let's take like a 7-year-old child that comes up to their parent and says, I want you to look at this painting that I did. And the parent says, I don't have time for that. Or they say, you could have done this so much better. Not only is it you rejecting, it's also you getting like a value judgment about yourself. Like, I'm not worthy. I don't have creative abilities. And so it's putting those lenses on, and then that's how you perceive the world moving forward. Like,
Absolutely.
it doesn't have to be huge, you know, quote unquote, huge things that happen to you. It's your experience.
100%.
Hmm.
Somebody asked, like, does that kind of come with setting boundaries? And I'm not quite sure which part you were referring to.
Yes, we can answer it just a little more in depth. um, but yeah, trauma does not have to look any certain type of way. And like you said, as far as people experiencing that, we're all in our little worlds. You know what I mean? And we're all living our own little lives. And so it's you having to go in internally and figure out what's going on, instead of like trying to figure out externally how to fix what's going on internally.
Exactly. And I love that, like, when it comes to like healing and stuff, it's more about the emotions, the emotional body, than particularly what exactly happened.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes healing can come without even reliving that trauma, just by being able to release the emotional parts of that. While you were talking earlier, I was kind of thinking about this new ideal that's going around with neurodivergence, and putting it on a pie chart instead of on a linear line, because they used to just say, well, you are this severe, or you are like, you know, whatever. But now they're starting to realize that like neurodivergence is really divergent, go figure, and that if you put it in a pie chart with symptoms, and then say how much this one symptom,
Oh, okay.
right, then it
Yeah.
starts to build a more well-rounded version of the type of neurodivergence that you have. So if you look about, like, if you look at that with trauma, then you can also be like, well, it causes this much anger, it causes this much sadness, but like, you can mold it that way, if you don't want to dig up everything just yet. And I know that like healing, it really only fully happens when you look at it, but sometimes you're just not ready. And so if
Yep.
you feel like you're just not ready, you can do some emotional body work as well.
I love that you said that, because I had a conversation earlier about healing can actually become toxic, because you can get so steeped into that shadow realm where you get so lost in it, and you get accustomed to feeling all of those like really intense emotions all the time, and it's very taxing on your physical body if that's something that you kind of dissociated away from your feelings for so long. Like, that's some deep, deep stuff when you start getting into like inner child work and pulling up all that trauma. And sometimes you have surface level things that need to be taken care of first.
Yeah,
Because when you start
absolutely.
going way deep down in there and your body isn't used to feeling emotions because you've disassociated from them from a long time, it can be heavy, heavy stuff. And I think that there's so many people out here saying like, you got to get in there and uproot everything at once and do that, and just your healing, you
You
have to
do
be.
your journey exactly how
Yes.
your journey feels it needs to be done for you. And I always tell people that. Even when I do sessions with people, I'm like, you know what, if some of the stuff that's being told to you doesn't feel like it's meant for you right now, maybe
Mhm.
shelf it, because your guide team could be coming through and letting you know information that you might be ready for 6 months from, like, 6 months down the road.
Yes, I would love to give an example if that's okay. So let's see. So I'm trying to type. I'm also listening. So intently. This is all great. Oh, thank you.
Thank
You know,
you.
so back to what we were talking about with the walk-in. So I had never really resonated with that until you explained your perceptions of it to me. And so I had so much shit that I had to work through that I was unable to go back in and talk to the younger versions of myself. Like, it was just too much emotionally. I just couldn't do it. And I, at one point, was just like, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. I'll put that down, work on what I have going on right now, and I'll get to it. And so it has just been in the last 7 or 8 months that I have started going in and talking to the younger versions of myself. And like you were saying, it's like those aren't me anymore. They are, but they're not. They're like separate entities in myself, but outside of myself. Like there's tiny me, there's older adult me, there's teenage me, and they've all kind of like splintered off, and now I'm their higher self. And I'm helping go back and heal them, and it's so much easier to do it because it's almost like I've disconnected enough to heal them in that way.
And when you're in that version, I just want to push you even a little bit further after you've gone in
Mm-hmm.
and done the inner child work. When you come back to yourself in this body, then ask your higher self if you have any other further messages to come
I love
down
that.
and allow healing into this body, because you then went back and healed that inner child, and now you then, being your inner child's higher self, then you come back to your body and you ask your higher self, which in essence, if time doesn't exist, are our higher selves just ourselves from the future coming back to the moment that
Oh,
we're in right now?
absolutely. When I did that mirror, I'll share when I was sitting in front of the mirror and I was trying to talk to myself now. But what ended up happening is my inner child popped out. And I was talking to my inner child, but then my higher self, future me, came in and was talking to me, guiding me on what to say to my inner child. And after
Yes.
I talked to her and then integrated her back in, it's like my higher self was like you said, coming in and saying, that was great, but this is what you need to do for you right now. And so it's all the whole
Right?
timeline is so funny how it works because
You
you
did
heal
that
the past, you heal
healing.
the
It
future.
happened. Now heal right now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you're always going to have healing to do. And that's the thing too. It's never going to stop.
Never. That's our journey here on Earth.
Yeah.
And how can we grow if we have nothing to grow from? If we have, it's like we grow and we experience. We learn, we grow, we experience. And if we're done doing that, we die.
Yeah, like what is there then? Because we like challenges. It
We
would be
do.
boring if we just like were, whatever, and we didn't have anything to do. And that's probably why Source was like, let me expand out, and so I can have different experiences and learn and grow. And what I was gonna say is, when I was saying that healing can become toxic because you get so steeped in those, guttural emotions, that self-care is just as important as healing.
Rest is so important, and like we have been taught so often to like judge ourselves for resting or for whatever. And it's like when you're having those moments where you're doing like inner child work, and like you literally is this kind of being, all you want to do is cuddle with a stuffed animal and lay on the couch with a snuggly blanket because your inner child is just screaming for some attention. Why do we not just do that instead of judge ourselves and say, why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm a grown ass adult. I shouldn't snuggle on the couch with a stuffy. No, snuggle on the couch with a stuffy. That is so healing for yourself.
Yes. Somebody said, I love that perspective, how we're our inner child's higher self. I too still have trouble facing my inner child. So what we were talking about before, as far as like maybe you're not ready to go back in and pull up all that trauma and heal it. What I have found when I first started doing this type of work is to sit in like kind of like a meditative state and just say, is there any version of myself that needs to come forward that needs love and compassion? And all I would do is just give them a hug and say, I love you, because I know they weren't ready. I wasn't ready for that, but we had to go ahead and start building that relationship. And you just showing up and saying, I see you there, and I'm going to love you like I needed love at that time. And I'm going to be the mother that I wanted during that time. And that starts that connection going. And then they start to trust you more and start to tell you more and they start to come out more and they start to interact with you more. But like Jess is saying, you have to listen to them when they're asking for things. Because if you're just sitting there and ignoring them or talking down to them, especially like younger versions of ourselves, and us saying like, you could have done better, like what were you doing, and just berating them, that makes them
just thinking of that.
That makes them go back in the recesses. They don't want to come out and talk to you because you're talking trash to them. And I did that. I would talk horribly about my past versions, and no wonder they didn't want to come out and be healed, because I, was just projecting all that at them. And
You
it's
were
not
trying to run away from them in the darkness instead of sitting
Yes.
down and talking to them. And
Yeah.
when you're running, you're in that mode of fear, anxiety, pushing instead of healing, accepting, growing.
When I made the switch of thank you, I appreciate every single one of you. And I hope that you can forgive me for treating you that way. Because if it wasn't for all of you going through, you're the ones that were brave and courageous for doing that. Like, thank you. Because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if y'all didn't do that for me. Like, we were just doing the best with what we had and the toolkit that we had. And you know what? We're here and we're living. So thank you.
Every single thing every one of us has ever done in our past was to get us to survive. We are alive today because of whatever it is that we did in our past. And somehow we need to find that part to thank. We have to be grateful for that part. We might not agree with the actions, the behavior, the ideals, and that's just part of growing. That's separating yourself from that old part of you so that you can continue on in your life. But you have to be able to accept and thank every part of you that came before you to get you to this moment, because whether you're healed, you're healing, you're starting your healing journey, you're at this moment.
I love that. And the more that you go in there and do that relationship with them, they'll start saying, can we do this together? Can we do this activity? And the more that you lean into that, like, you heal right now from like having that version of yourself wanting to interact with you and have fun with you and do the things that maybe you weren't able to do during that time. Or what I found is they start showing me memories I forgot about. Like, do you remember how much fun we had doing this? And I'm like, oh yeah, like that was great. And thank you for that.
And that was one of the best things, because when I started to realize that you just need to do the crazy outlandish things that your inner child is asking for to like start to heal that, it was when my inner child asked to make a blanket fort. And I'm like, I am going to make a freaking blanket fort like nobody's business. And I made the best blanket fort ever. I crawled in there with snacks, coloring books. I had a little TV propped up in there so I could put on a movie. I had my blankets, my stuffed animals. I'm in this blanket fort, and you guys, I fell asleep for 6 hours. I don't know what kind of integration healing thing I was doing.
Yeah.
But I didn't watch any TV. I didn't snuggle. I didn't eat any of my snacks. I passed out and I did some kind of energetic healing work. It was just wild.
And she trusted you enough to ask. And then now you have the toolkit to make that happen for her. And so it's like this beautiful relationship.
Without judgment, because my parents would be like, that would make a mess. Don't do that. Like my mom, she'd be like, absolutely not. That would destroy the basement. And I'm like, because I couldn't clean up afterwards. But, I mean, with the place that I'm at now, it's exactly that. I have the toolkit. I have the authority to provide my inner child those things now. And time is not linear. And so I'm able to go back and heal the parts of my inner child that wanted to build a blanket fort in one of those moments to feel safe and secure and, or to have some fun.
Oh, I was like, you were making me teary. That was just so beautiful. And like, I just know you brought her so much healing and that you're being such a good parent to her. And it is weird because it's you, right? But you're being the parent that you wish you had in that moment, and like bringing just so much.
See,
And
but I love that too that you say that, because sometimes in my mental space I like swap, like, I almost feel like my own mother, and I'm like, oh, I was like, whoa, that came through very motherly. And I love that you just came
yeah,
like and said that, because in a sense, like I'm mothering myself in that moment.
absolutely, you are. You're being the mother to your inner child. And I had that realization the other day. So when I was younger, I used to love volleyball. Like I loved it so much, and I actually played in high school. But before that, I didn't have anyone to play with. Like my other family members just weren't interested in that, and it made me incredibly lonely. And I said, I just want someone who I can play with. And the other day, or not the other day, but me and my son have picked up volleyball and playing with one another. I had a moment of realization that my higher self had come to me when I was by myself playing volleyball and said, it's okay. Somebody's coming along. I'm going to try not to cry. Somebody is coming along that is going to play with you. And we go out and play together, and I just know my higher self like kept me going, and now I have somebody to play volleyball with.
And I love that you can like heal your own inner child work by
Yeah.
allowing that inner child to like come out while you're playing with your son. While you guys are playing volleyball together and doing crafts and arts and everything together. Like you can just allow your inner child to come out and say, this is what I'm giving you, what you wanted. This is exactly what you desired, and now you have somebody to play with.
I feel like sometimes when I'm playing with my son, I can feel the flip over. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna let you take the wheel of consciousness, and now you have a playmate. Like you can come out and you have a friend now that you can play with and resonate on that level. And it's very healing for me too, because it keeps me out of that adult anxiety of everything is so hard and difficult. It's not. It's not. When you're out playing volleyball and having fun and letting loose and being in magic and play, like it de-stresses you on a different level.
Well, and it's interesting too, because like how programmed were we to have anxiety and depression and overworking ourselves and pushing past our boundaries? Like how often were we just programmed to live in that kind of energy? Like, of course we were manifesting more of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we could get into like a whole thing about how capitalistic societies want you to be stressed out to make more money, but we don't have to get into all that. But
Though you and I could talk for
yes,
6 hours on that
yes,
topic.
yes. I don't even know what time. We've probably been talking for a long time. It's 7:38 now. Do you want to do a wrap up? I feel like we have hit like all different types of topics.
Right?
And so where can people find you, Jess? I would like to reiterate it just in case.
I am everywhere. I have a Facebook page, Jet Tarot and Jet Artworks. I am on Instagram here at Jet Tarot. You guys can go onto my profile here. I have a link to my art one. It's at Jess.Walker90. And then I'm also at TikTok at Jess Walker 25. At Jess Walker 25.
Yes. Yes. And Jess makes the best content. I love watching everything that you put out and all your art and everything. It's just so magic. Right. And like I always receive healing from whatever it is in whatever capacity that you do. It's just so incredibly healing. And so I definitely recommend going to check yourself out or check your stuff out.
I love creating art from the bottom of my heart. And I really wanted to be able to do something that was going to like help others. And my guides were really adamant on putting light language and symbolism and stuff into my art. And once I started doing that, like the feedback that I got was like, wow, your art is so activating, your art is so powerful. And I'm just like, that's just confirmation. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. And that's I can tell when I first started looking, I'm like, ooh, that's some activating pieces. That is activating things in people, whether it's their art that you're producing for them or they're looking at somebody else's that's been produced from you. Like that's a lot of light codes in your art. I love it. Jess, Thank you so much for doing this and coming on. I knew
Thank
it was going to be
you.
so much fun. I felt like I was vibrating like so high, like while we were talking. And I was like, oh, there we go, into the different plane. Uh,
I had to like
so,
4 times ask my body to ground. I've been holding on to
yep.
this little heart the whole time. I'm just like, we're
Oh,
getting
I
too
love
far
it.
up into the astral. I'm vibrating
Yep.
now. Please bring me back down a little bit.
I felt that too. I was like, oh, I'm getting real like fluffy. And so I had to do the
And now
same, like, let's ground
your
back down.
camera for the last like 10 minutes has been like doing some weird visuals too. So like,
Yeah, so has yours.
everything's telling us that we're ready to wrap up.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming. We had so much fun and we really appreciate everyone listening to what we have to say. And so thank you. This has been amazing. And Jess, I will see you next time.
Absolutely. See you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night, everybody.